This is a 1958 Bassman. Now, I last worked on this amp a little over 10 years ago. I have no idea what condition it's in now, what it may need. So this will be pretty much a fun one. But first, a trigger warning. I have gotten into some poison oak and poison ivy, and I'll try not to give any close-ups and gory detail, but I've got masses of blisters on my right hand, particularly between my fingers. So if that disturbs you, don't watch. As this goes on, you may occasionally see those blisters. I'll try not to make them the focal point. I'm not trying to gross anyone out, but I need to get some work done. So if that bothers you, if that disturbs you, you have been warned. And maybe when I do the final video on this, if there's going to be any work done, I don't know yet. Maybe in a later video, my blisters will be gone. You can check back on that one. Anyway, let's turn this around and see what we have. Okay, I'm looking through this. Someone else has worked on this before me. I know that there's a cathode resistor replacement here down at the far right. That's my work with a Sprague Atom. This is a previously replaced resistor and cathode. That's not mine. Those big metal films there in the output are not mine. And these orange Spragues in the bias supply predate my work. So I might have replaced the tube sockets, but the work doesn't look familiar to me. It doesn't have any of the little things that I do. So I think the tube sockets, the octals, were replaced by a previous tech who did pretty good work. There's a couple of solder joints that don't look the best to me. Let's see, it's got a replaced power switch at some point. I don't think that was my work. I don't think I did a lot to this. I don't think I was even the one to take out the selenium diode here in the old bias supply, because that's a tack soldered diode there, and that wire going to it's under a little bit of tension. I'm not a fan of that. Let's see what the fuse is in here before I power it on. It's a 3 amp, that's correct. It's got the polarity death cap here. No, it doesn't. That's a standby switch with a cap on it to try to depop it. This is the polarity switch. Let me hook this up with my current limiter, and we will see what the sound out of the gate is. Let me turn the tone stack up to noon. Volume's off, presence, about 9:30, 10 o'clock. We got 111 volts coming out of the wall right now, so I'm not going to use a variac. I'm watching my light bulb limiter that you guys can't see. It's on the other side of the amp from here. I think I'm going to have the go-ahead to really restore this, as opposed to kind of the piecemeal patchwork repairs that have happened over the years. This is an older electrolytic. That's not mine either. I really think I probably just changed the tube and changed out this cathode resistor. But this is back when I was still doing this a little bit part-time, and I don't have my notes on this amp from back then. Let's take it out of standby. No hum. I don't know if that's a noisy tube or just a dirty socket. Very slight microphonic sound through the speakers as I tap the output tubes. Not enough to worry about. The speakers, there are 3 silver frame P10Rs, which may be original, and 1 black frame P10Q, which is, I don't think it is. And that P10Q is mounted way off the baffle. I think they put it on the gasket of an existing speaker. There's a bit of shielded wire I put here from the volume pot to the mix resistors. I'm not sure why I did that. Might have been just me being overzealous about shielding things. But it's possible there was a noise that helped. The noise floor seems quite good. The pots are original, and a little bit of dirt there. Those will get cleaned in the process. Just on the treble pot. Let's see, are we getting anything out of the presence? Sometimes those old Astrons on the present circuit go bad. But it's working. I'm going to do a test, but first let me turn down the mic pre for the overhead mic so we don't blast things. Even at moderate volumes, having the mic within 3 feet and the mic pre set for voice would end up in a very distorted signal. So let me turn down the pre real quick. A little bit of DC on the input there. That could be the tube. That could be, it's probably not the cathode, but it could be the grid leaks on the input jacks. Let's see here on the other channel. Let's see if they have a 12X7 or a 12AY7 there. That's an AX. Still a little bit of DC on the input, but not as much as with the other 12AX7, so it could be a leaky tube and something in the amp. That's always fun. We'll get to the bottom of that. So overall, this is not in bad shape at all. Just had a few questionable things done to it. I don't like how tight this neutral is, or the fact that the neutral is being switched. I don't like the diode being tight like that. And I think a 58 Bassman deserves to be restored a little more respectfully than some of the stuff that's in here. But that's fairly easily done. Someday I'll have a fancy sliding stand for the camera so I can do real nice panning shots for you guys and rotating things and all that. Till then, I'll just do this where I just turn it back and forth on autofocus, and you can get a sense of what I've been talking about. When the time comes to do the work, after I've spoken to the owner, I'll give you lots of really good close-up shots of the process, and then afterwards, it's going to be a transformed amp. It already sounds okay, but it's got a little bit of a high noise floor, some scratchy pots, and particularly on things like these bias caps. And here, these are some fairly ancient caps, and I've got to take the chassis out, look under the doghouse before we go any farther. So when we're moving chassis that are hang down like this, I try to turn the amp on its side, particularly in an amp like this where it doesn't have any weight to, it can't fall that way. It can just fall that way. And let's gravity be my friend. There's always a trick on a Bassman or similar where that one screw is attached to the little tab coming off the power transformer. Getting that thing to line back up can be fun, and getting that thing tight can be funner. I'm trying to do this without dropping the nut. Impossible. Sorry, couldn't turn my hand in there. I'll get that nut out afterwards. Now there's a little bit of pressure on this screw as a result of all that. So I'm gonna let it guide itself out. I can't pull it out. I forgot to turn the autofocus off, so hopefully this isn't moving around too much and zooming in on my blisters. Now I'll loosen this one. Trying to see if I need to get a socket or if I can just kind of get it just enough to start it to turn freely without, I don't want to scar the nut with the teeth of this, but if I can avoid having to get out the right angle socket set, I will. All right, there we go. I'm not scarring the Kep's nut. It's a non-original Kep's nut. Oh, it's important for me to note that the power is off at this point while I'm in this area. I don't want to be touching any of these things here with this if it's plugged into the wall. Sorry, just some of the common sense safety stuff to me is just so obvious that I forget to mention it in videos. But then I'm like, oh, Lyle, come on, man, you've met people. I'm doing the one down here that you can't see. It's just like the one you're about to see. But the one up top is the trickier one. And one of the things I like to do on these two screws is once I get the nut off, and this one was not a Kep's nut, it will be when it goes back out, is I leave the screw in the chassis. So about 1/2 inch is still sticking out, which helps me center everything when I put it back in, and it kind of supports itself while I get the nuts all lined up. And sometimes I can just back it out like this, and then as I turn it clockwise, the Kep's nut or whatever will continue to back out on its own. In this case, it won't. So that nut all the way loose, and that nut fell into the polarity switch cap lead. This screw's at kind of an angle just due to the weight of things right now. Let's see if I can get that nut to fall out, or if I can get it. Here we go. Let's see. So the 3 screws holding everything in place, only one was a Kep's. I don't think I was the last person in this amp as a result. But anyway, on most Tweed chassis amps, I can leave those screws in place and pull it down. Now you can see on this amp that the bell cover of the speaker would prevent me from taking the chassis in that direction because it would hit here and this one would hit the power transformer. So I've got to back those screws out enough that I can pull the chassis directly towards me. I'm doing it by hand because my tool is on the other side of the room and I already started the video. All right, now I can carefully take this towards me. There's the nut that fell. Let me put this cabinet to the side and get the chassis situated on the bench for everyone. All right, let's take these screws out. When an old screw like this, I prefer to at least start it by hand because I can have a sense of the resistance. I don't want to spin something out or strip something if it's stuck. And then I can finish with a power tool. When I put them back, I will start them by hand. I will often tighten them most of the way with the power tool and then do the final tightening by hand. Oh, wow, no caps. Just kidding. In this era, they're under here. And yes, they are just soldered to the metal of the doghouse in this era. And they're just tack soldered, sometimes with a twist. These are obviously Greg Adams from 1988. So I think it's time to replace those as well. And it's they're not really they don't have any secure to the top there. I would want these things to have adhesion, some support on both sides so they can't bang around. But yeah, they're just solder directed to the doghouse like that. It's not the best way to do things, but it's why it's really important to have good, to be careful with the screws on these. And I will get in here and I'll clean the metal surfaces where everything mates with the chassis and clean the chassis. So when this goes back together, the ground will be as good as the ground on this style of Bassman can be. You can see why Leo went to the fiber boards with the ground wires as opposed to just trusting this connection or that kind of tricky solder joint. So this thing needs all the electrolytics changed out. It is more than time. It needs the pots cleaned. It needs some dodgy work redone properly, and needs some, well, that'll do. Let's just get that fixed and get it back on the road. Decisions made in the 80s and 90s undone and make this thing beautiful, because it is time for this thing to shine again and really, really last. And I think that's going to be fun. I'm going to get the parts list together, and I'll speak to the owner. And I know that he wants to do this. This is going to be very rewarding. And there is a date code on this triad output transformer I need to check. There's a date code of 1958 on the power. I don't see any code or number on the choke, but the number stamped on the top of the output is 45249. If that last digit is the year, then this amp that the owner has described as a 58 would be a 59. But I don't know if that's what that means. But I know that the power transformer is definitely 1958, so it's almost semantics this far back in time. This will be fun. Hope you enjoy watching this in the future. And for now, thanks for watching.